So you were an English major? No. You were this? No, I wasn't that. Or you were this? No, I wasn't any of those things. I'm a guy that has a passion about putting a purpose that's out there, a goal that's out there. I want that emotional eddy to swirl up. I want the conversation. I'm very goal driven.
You're listening to the Kristof Lewis Podcast, a podcast where I have conversations with inspirational people. My name is Chris, but my family calls me Kristof. My goal is to have as many conversations as possible with people who have forged their own path by pursuing their dreams, making them a reality, all the while emitting positivity and sharing this knowledge with others. I seek these people out and share this information with you, proving to the world that you can do what makes you happy and do what you want for a living while being a good human being. We'll talk about careers, but we'll also cover any story that inspires. Let's do this while helping each other. Thanks for listening. I'm happy you're here. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Welcome to the Kristof Lewis Podcast. This is conversation number 66, and I'm excited that you are here. I say it every time, and every time I mean it more than the last, and that's absolutely possible. I love doing this podcast, and I want you to find something that you love doing too. And it doesn't have to be something that you make money at. I haven't made money on the podcast for 14, 15, 16 months, and I'm not going to stop anytime soon because I love having these conversations with other people in hopes to inspire you to do the same. Do not pursue the money, pursue finding value and giving value for yourself and for others, and I promise you, everything will be okay. I had a great conversation today. My guest today was David Serafine, and he is an author of incredible books. We discussed those within this conversation and many, many more topics. David is a genuinely good person, and this 30-minute conversation whizzed by, as I said during the conversation. It's just incredible that when you're in an engaged conversation, that just how much value you can gain from something like that. You just feel so good after this. I always feel great after these conversations. So you'll hear me say it during the conversation, but one of the things from this podcast that I try to always articulate to you guys, or one of my goals, is to spark this, just you all having your own conversations as well in your own life. So you listen to some things here and you are encouraged, hopefully, to go into your life and have these conversations with other people, help encourage other people. Maybe they're having a bad day, your wife or your husband or your brother, mother, family member, somebody at work. You go out into your life and you have a conversation with them and you encourage them that they can do what they want in life. You can find all of these conversations and contemplations on kristoflewis.com/podcast, and you can find me at Kristof Lewis on Instagram. So without further ado, welcome to the Kristof Lewis Podcast.
Kristof, my pleasure. Been looking forward to this for the last 2 weeks, so I can't wait to dive into the discussion for sure.
Absolutely. Oh, man, we reached out to each other and we had some. I'll say I'll go back to what I just said to you before we started recording. You sent me an email, kind of told me about yourself a little bit, and I was very intrigued to talk to you. There was a lot of passion, to say the least, in what you had wrote to me, and I annotated something here specifically. You said you want to inspire awareness, emotion, action into local and regional efforts to cure Alzheimer. So I know you've been very effective about that in your life, and you've gone on even more so to write about it. And you know as much as I know that this is a huge thing that I love to talk about. It's not just experiencing hardships in our life, which is incredibly hard to do, bar none, but to be able to encapsulate that, to have the courage and the vulnerability to share that story with others. And you haven't just talked about it, you went as so far to write a book about it. So I'd love to get into that. And I just wanted to take a second to say that I just love that you've gone to do that. And I always want to encourage people to share their stories. And if you can encapsulate that in a book, I've had a few friends on the podcast do that as well, and I just absolutely love that you've done that.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. For me, I'm a completely passionate guy about everything. In fact, you'll probably have to rein me back in at points.
Perfect.
That's the way that I am. So for me, my wife's family was the one who's actually impacted by the Alzheimer. So, from sort of a distanced relationship to kind of observe and watch what collateral damage that has on the caregiver, what it's like for the memory care facilities,
sure,
for the loved ones, the spouses, things like that. it really inspired me to say that, the way that I can raise awareness around that and the passion I have is through writing, right?
Sure.
And so the goal for me was, to elicit some emotional eddy where it causes that response, that visceral response of rage, anger, sadness, empathy, sympathy, anything you can possibly get from your writing to inspire that conversation to take the next step. So,
Absolutely.
I'm not a famous guy. I'm working at my very best to do things in life. But from the standpoint of having the platform to say, I've already got, 30 million people that follow me, I want to pick up this cause and speak about it. I don't have that. But I did invest a year and a half of my time to say, I'm going to work really, really hard to do what I can at the reader level and make that impact and at least start the conversation and take it forward from there. So
absolutely,
it's been a long process, but I'm very proud of what has come about from that.
And you should definitely be proud. I love that because, I'm coming up on a year and a half of doing the podcast the same way. And in the same way, I mean, fame is one thing, but, most of us, even people that have acquired quote unquote fame, started from, again, essentially nothing in a sense, right? So I didn't have any kind of podcasting experience. Nobody knew who I was except for a couple friends, and that was it. But you got to start somewhere. So that's why I'm always encouraging, like, get it out there. Like you said, encourage that talk as well. So that's why I love, recording these conversations with people like yourself, because I want to encourage other people. If you want to start a podcast, then great. But at least go out there and have these type of conversations with people and give examples of people like yourself that have gone out there and experienced these things. Your wife experienced these things with her parents, and there's plenty of other people who have gone out there and have experienced very tough things. And to be able to go out there and be like, well, who cares if I'm famous or not? Like, people need to know about this, and everybody started somewhere, and it just starts with taking a step forward or writing that first word on that page and being able to help other people out, or at least, that's what you'd like to do. Another thing I wrote down is you said, like you kind of just said, I'm an unknown, but you want to become the best writer. So you're setting that goal of yourself, and as you should say, I want to become the best writer. I want to become the best podcaster out there. You know what I'm saying? And you said, while creating good in society, and that's like, you're so, everything that I've read that we talked about via email and that we're getting into already is just, it's so focused on helping other people. And I truly love that. So you're doing awesome things.
It's funny because I check none of the boxes, right? So the story goes, when you want to become a writer, so you were an English major. No. You were this? No, I wasn't that. Or you were this? No, I wasn't any of those things. I'm a guy that has a passion about putting a purpose that's out there, a goal that's out there. I want that emotional eddy to swirl up. I want the conversation. I'm very goal driven. So that Alzheimer's thing hit me personally.
Absolutely.
So from that standpoint, that is my goal in this particular engagement, is get the word out on that. The ultimate goal for everybody that's surrounding that, whether you're famous or not, or whatever you're doing at the local level, is to find a cure. Sure. The cure means you have to find awareness to shift funding to basically create an action in congressional funding to find a cure. That's the bottom line goal, right? So I don't necessarily separate based on how people go about doing that. I say the best way that I know I can contribute to doing it, the one I've got a passion for, is by writing a good story and saying, sure, this is what that thing looks like, and this is what we're up against at this point. So that's what I set out to do.
Interesting. And so let's backpedal for 1 second. You've written other books. And how did you, like, maybe one would pose the question, well, how do you even begin to, I have a story to share. How do you even begin to do this? Did you write other books first before you wrote this book, or was this your first book?
So it's a great question. This is my third book. Okay. And so now I'm going to qualify that by saying that I've had a career for 25 years in security, which I love to death. I love my employer. I have passion for it. At one point, I was up for recertification, and they asked me to write a book on a particular subject that I'm decent at. So I said, sure, I'll do that. So my first book was an industry publication where somebody set out to me and said, this is your goal to convey these aspects within this field. So, somebody's prescribing to me what that looks like, sure, which, okay, fine, I'll do that. My second book was my own book of saying, I'm going to create this, 10 comedic vignettes of my life of travel, right? So I've done certain things throughout the course of travel.
Yeah, I saw that.
My concept was on Schadenfreude. It was like, I'm going to make fun of myself for failing at certain things I attempted, and I'm going to make people laugh based on the writing.
That's awesome.
And that went very well as well. And there was a learning experience in writing, comedic things versus now saying, I'm creating a literary fiction piece with Alzheimer's as the backdrop. And people saying, well, you can't do that because that's not by the rules. You can't do it. You've never written fiction before. You can't do it. And so all of those things have been pushed to me. And I said, well, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to work very hard at getting done, and I'm going to make a very good story. And I'm going to create the audience and the action to get what I'm trying to do. So here's where we are at this point with the book at this point.
That's so cool. I think it's, I haven't heard, that's definitely a first. I haven't heard of your employer, you said, approached you to write the first book. I think that's a pretty unique situation. Is it not, or does this happen more often and I'm just not privy to knowing this?
So the industry, not my employer.
The industry,
okay. Which I work within, so multiple groups do certain things in the industry, and they said to basically get another certification, why don't you write a book on such and such? And I said, sure, I'd be glad to do that.
That's so cool.
So anybody in the security field can take this book and basically benefit from it. But and I'm proud of that. But that's not my concept, my idea, my passion, and what I was writing to get, right? So this is my passion. This is my goal. This is me. It's my story. So that was a different take altogether, for sure.
It's pretty cool in a sense of that, yes, it wasn't your passion, but you were able to get a book or two under your belt, if you will, before you're able to write your passion. And not to say that if that would have been your first book, you would have done really well as well, but I'm just thinking, at least in this situation, you would have been able to, get a few under your belt and be able to figure out maybe what or what isn't your style and just how to do it, what your process is. And then by the time you get to your passion, you're just knocking it out of the park. And it reminds me of a conversation I had last night with another individual. And you may not be doing what you want in life right now, but like if you may not be doing a job or working a job that you like, but you need to go into that job and you need to set the tone. You need to work your butt off to just crush that job while you're there. If you don't like it, at least like work on trying to get a promotion or, make more money before you find another job. So the way I'm giving this example is because, write your ass off on those books, like do the best you possibly can. Not that you didn't, but you were, impassioned with it. And then when you get an opportunity to write about something you care, or in my analogy, when you get to a job to do something that you actually care, then you're already conditioned to be able to work hard and like write your butt off. And then so you're like, it gives you more. Like I said, you want to be conditioned. You want to train yourself to work hard. So when your feet touch the ground on something you love, you're just off running. And I did want to say one of the things you said that I loved was people were saying to you that you can't do that. You can't write something like that. Like, how often do you hear that? Not just in being an author, just in life. You hear it all the time. People have told me so much in the podcast, you can't do it this way. You're going to have to niche it this way. You're going to have to talk to these kind of people. And I'm just like, no. I'm going to do this. And
I think that's why I was initially attracted to what it is you do and your purpose behind it. So, from my perspective, the first thing I did after I'd already written 2 books, one is an industry publication, which in a lot of people's eyes would say that doesn't count, right? So the first writers club that I went to, I had well-known authors around the table, all right? And they had all of their notes and all their cards in front of them about what their next project is and about their past accolades and the whole thing. And I was the last person to speak. And so I heard everybody around the room, and I had a 3x5 card.
Yeah.
That was the end of it. And I stood up and they said, well, what is your goal? I said, well, I'm going to write a literary fiction novel based on this and this. And they looked at me and said, but you have no publisher, but you have no agent, but you have no manuscript. You've got nothing.
Yeah.
So you can't do that. It doesn't work like that. I said, no, I'm going to do it. This is the concept I've got. I'm going to work it through. I never went back again. I never went back to that group again, right? So and to this point, that same coffee shop that we had that discussion, I now have my book sitting there by the owner of the coffee shop front and center, which I thought was kind of a cool.
Yeah, I would say so. That's incredible.
Very happy with
that just goes to, that's an incredible story. Like I love that. That's very emotional. That's very, very incredible to be able to do that. But I think it just goes to show, like, when you set your mind to do something, and also when you have naysayers, obviously, like that, I know for me and for you, like, it fuels the fire. But when people have these rules and all these restrictions to how they think things should be done just because that's how they have been done in the past. So who's to say you can't break the chains and fly off in a different direction and do something different in a manner of, that suits you best? Like, why do you have to be restrained to the path that it's like one of my least favorite things to hear is that's the way we've always done things. Like, isn't that the worst thing to hear? I hate hearing that.
It's draining. And why are you hiring smarter people to come in and people that have more world skills and so on and so forth? Why are you doing that? If that is the way it's always been, then don't hire the people coming in, right? So I think that there has to be a healthy dialogue and engagement to do your thing. You're unique because of you. Don't do it because somebody else is saying that this is the way it has to be done. And the entire writing group was, but you have to plot this out, plot that, and so on and so forth. And I said that I failed finite math in college. That is literally the training wheels equivalent of to get you through college math, right? And so my mind is not built to do things like that.
Sure.
And I said, I'm not taking that. I'll take whatever's next. It's, no, you've got to pass this. That's it. That's the bottom rung, right? So, but I got through that, and my point with that is there are certain ways that I learn, and traveling and engaging in conversations and hearing other people's opinions, going down beneath the surface of the way things always have been. That's the way that I learn best. That's what I get a passion for. Absolutely. And I'm energized to work with.
Yeah, that's one of the things I absolutely love to talk about is just education in general, right? You have your formal education, self-education, and to me, like I've said it before, like formal education really wasn't the vehicle for me to learn best. Just plain and simply, you said you failed math in college, and you've obviously been very successful in the things that you wanted to do. I've been very successful in the things that I've wanted to do, and that's how it works. And it's a different vehicle for everybody. And I in no way want to shun, college or any kind of formal education, nor do any of that, So I hope people are very clear on when I say that it's just very different for everybody. So I do like that you put that out there. Like you can fail in certain things at a high level in that manner, college, but you've obviously just, blown through and been able to accomplish other things. These are not all things that are necessary to be successful in the way that you want to be successful.
I couldn't agree more. And I would argue that point with anybody, in that there are people that learn differently and that are incentivized differently. They feel that they're successful, and that's a very relative term. What is success? So from my standpoint, success means I set out a specific goal for myself that I was able to achieve. And then I'll set another goal that I'm looking to achieve as well. So I'm not going to let somebody else say that your goal is you have to have this and that is deemed successful. That's not what I want at this point in life. So I think that the success term is thrown around by different people. I think that we come to take somebody else's terms of success, internalize it, and then change the way that we're supposed to be as an individual and adapt around that versus saying, create my own path of success, and this is what that's going to look like.
No, I absolutely agree. It's just like the piece on formal education and self-education. I would go as far as say is almost everything we do in our lives is unique to us. The way we get in shape, the way we eat, like just because you're healthy and you eat a certain way doesn't mean it's going to be working for somebody else, or the physicality aspect of it, or whatever you do, the way you write a book, the way you do anything, like literally the way you do anything is going to be unique to you. The way you consume information is going to be unique to you. So it would make sense if most of those things are true for the most part, that when you're doing something or when you're quantifying success for yourself, then you have to quantify it for you. And that's it. It's just, and setting your own goals. That's one of the pieces that I liked that you said that I take away from that is you set your goals, and then as you get those, because people would qualify, or people would ask, what qualifies as success? Is it, what does it mean when I've made it or somebody's made it? Like, well, that's their own interpretation of made it being synonymous with success. And, like I've talked, I have these whiteboards all up on here. Like as I knock these goals out that I have for myself that are behind you, I feel very successful when I hit these things. Like, that's great. I want these many downloads a month, or I want to be able to, like, it's no secret, I've said before, like I want to talk on TED Talks. That's probably going to be years, but I'm going to try to do it as fast as I can. And I know when I get that done, I'll feel very, very successful in that moment to even have that opportunity. So all of these things are the way that I quantify success for myself. And I would highly encourage everybody, like, it doesn't have to be anything crazy like that. It could be something small that you do on the day-to-day basis. And I would say, like, today I had a very successful day today. I got these things done, and I think that's what helps build that consistency of being able to, knock out these small things throughout the day and then throughout the week, and it just builds up, and you're able to gain momentum. And of course, momentum is very, very powerful, and you're able to just keep on rolling like that, and then you know how it is to win, honestly. And a lot of people talk about learning from their failures, but I had talked to a previous guest, and he was massive on I love learning from my successes because he knows what he does right. So he just kept on doing that. So I would say when you get these, these small wins every day and you get that momentum, then just keep on doing what's working. There's no need to necessarily focus on your failures unless they're consistently bringing you down and you're not learning from them. But if you're winning, like keep on, or if you're succeeding at what you want to do, keep on doing that.
No, I completely agree. And again, I think that not selling your own personal beliefs, your own goals, your own aspirations out for somebody else's benefit or somebody else's goal and what they think is best for you. I mean, you're at this point, I'm 48 years old. I mean, if I haven't figured it out at this point, then I'm not the right guy doing what I'm doing, right? So I think for me, I sit there and say, I know exactly what's best for me. I know what I see as being successful for me. And quite frankly, with what I'm doing right now, if you said to a literary agent, a publisher, and then to me, what is the definition of success? You're going to have two entirely different answers on that side of the table versus what I would deem as success. All right, so I would say that if you're saying pushing 3 million units of a book out, that's what they're going to say is the only thing that matters. My point is, if I had 1,000 people read the book and change the way that they're talking about the subject that is in there, that eventually leads them to do something for the cause, that's successful for me. That's what I set out to do.
No,
right? So
I absolutely love that. It kind of reminds me of what I preach is you just can't intake information. You have to apply that information or it's worthless, right? So who cares if you sell 3 million books to a point if it doesn't change anybody's life, if it doesn't get anybody actually thinking, get the cogs turning in their head to actually make a change. But if you, like you said, that was a perfect example, but if you reach out to 1,000 people and they actually start implementing it, that's a huge fighting force to be able to get something into motion that you truly care about and that these people care about.
Completely. And in fact, going back to that same Writers Club meeting, the advice that was given to me was, that's a very difficult subject to talk about. I said, that's exactly why I'm talking about it. I want that conversation. Why would I put into a corner, right? and somebody actually said that if you were smart, you would write a young adult's novel and put a dragon in there because that's a very hot topic right now, dragons. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. That's not me. And that just, it would be selling myself out for something I'm not. I wouldn't want to play.
That's crazy though. I mean, they tell you like you'd be better off doing this. People just think they know what's best for us, don't they? They really think they know. And it goes back to like, just because it works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And I'll reiterate that through the duration of me doing a podcast. Like, you are unique. Like, people, like, again, I was talking to, it was Conversation 60 that actually is out the week that we're recording this. So if you're listening to this in the future, it's a little bit different. But the week they're recording this, they were talking about, they traveled the world. They didn't even tell their family, I don't even think their parents, that they had this, quote unquote outlandish plan that they were going to do this. So sometimes what I'm saying is even your closest friends, your family can think they know what's best for you, but they don't. And it's really hard to tell them that they don't really know what's best for you. And that's a difficult emotional line to cross. So no, you're absolutely right about that. And another point, you said you're 48 years old, and a lot of times people, what I hear all the time is like, I'm too old to do this, or I can't change doing something, like, how am I going to do this? And I'm just like, I started this podcast, I was, in my 30s already. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, if you want to do something, like, go out and do it. Somebody will look at you and be like, David, you can't write a book. You're in your 40s. Like, that's outlandish.
But even beyond that, you're too old not to do it. What are you waiting for? I mean, there's only so many years you're allotted on the planet, so you're too old to not do what you're trying to do, right? So I've got plenty of energy, plenty of passion for it. I've got the desire and the will to make it work. So for me, I was like, I'm too old to not do it. If I didn't do it, I'd fault myself when I was 75 years old or whatever it was. So This is what I'm doing. It's going to look good. And now I've got another step beyond this, what I'm going to do next. So for me, I want to become the best writer. I want to see this particular book get to a stage, and I want it to be actively acted out, the live portion of the engagement. I want the emotional impact every night with as many audience members as I can, and I'm not stopping with it. That's my goal. And then I will pick up another book, another pen, and start doing the exact same thing over again. Yeah,
absolutely. Rinse and repeat. I feel the same way. Like, I don't want to get to, hopefully I live a long and healthy life and I'm able to see, grandchildren and all that, but I don't want to get to the end of my life and just be like, wow, 48 years ago was a long time ago. I'm in my, 80s or 90s, Lord willing. And wow, that was half a lifetime ago, and I thought I was too old to do anything. So age is just relative, and quite frankly, age is just it's rotations around the sun, and that's it to me. Like, the amount of experience that you put in those years is what counts to me. There's plenty of, it's so funny, and like when I was a kid, I thought all adults were just so old and sophisticated and mature, and then as you get older and you age, and you're like, nobody knows shit. Like, everybody's just a grown-up baby. Like, like everybody, like, just because you get older doesn't mean you're a competent individual. So I don't really care how old you are. If you want to do something, go out there and do it. And it just matters about the experiences that you put into the time that you have here. That's how I honestly feel.
I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to get the age wrong, I'm certain, but there was like a 103-year-old woman at skydive for the first time like last week or 98
That's
or something.
crazy.
But I'm like, that is awesome. That is complete living life, man. That is so cool. And her face was just beaming with smile. She was happy. She was alive, right? So for me, it's stuff like that where they would say, no, it's a bad idea. You can't do it. This could happen. That could happen. She's out there skydiving and having a blast doing it. So do what you do, right?
I mean, and who was it? I think it was it Colonel Sanders who started KFC in his 70s or something, I believe.
Yeah.
Like, that's are you kidding me? That huge franchise rivaling something on the magnitude of McDonald's, and you started it in your 70s. Do you think for a second he'd be like, oh, I'm in my 70s, I might as well just like throw in the towel and kick some dirt and that's going to be it? But no, like, you have the ability to change the world. Like, and I say that confidently, change the world. You can do it, as what you're trying to do with your book right now, to literally change the world and impact that. You think anybody that's ever changed the world in the history of the world thought that they didn't have the ability to change the world? Absolutely not. It all starts with an individual, and I love that. You just have to apply that. You got to know that you're enough to do. If you want to do something, you got to do it. That's one of the things I love talking about, is just that I think, because I've seen it in myself, I've sold myself short so much. I sold myself so short. I've set my goals way too low, and that's not what you're doing, and that's not what you're continuing to do. You said, I have these goals. I want to be the best writer. I want to bring much more attention to Alzheimer's, and you know what your goal is, and you're just going after it ferociously. So if you have goals, set them and think about, well, maybe I'm setting my goals too low. Let's set them up higher. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're not a failure if you don't reach it. You've tried, and you just got to try again. You got to figure out a different way to accomplish plan A, and that's it.
Yeah, no, that all makes perfect sense to me. And I think that failure is not trying to do it. It's not trying to achieve, not trying to be the best you can be in whatever it is you're seeking to do. And so from my standpoint, like I said, I'm latching on to a personal issue I saw my wife go through with her family, right? And then I started learning how collateral damage works with this particular disease, meaning the relationships, the memories, the care that is not paid for, all kind of stuff. And for me, it's at this point, it's the 6th highest death rate in the country. Wow. That nobody knows that, right? So prostate and breast cancer combined don't kill as many people as now this dementia, Alzheimer's at this point does, right? So from my standpoint, it is also going up, where great work by people that have advocated for breast cancer, for prostate cancer, that is actually going, they've done a tremendous job. They've done exactly what we're trying to do now for other things, say, as it relates to Alzheimer's, right? Mm-hmm. And for me, the passion is, I want to write something. It's a beautiful story that causes that emotion to come up, but I want to find the next thing. I'm like, okay, that right there is something else. I want to raise awareness as well. Don't stop with this. Keep moving to the next issue that I feel is personally motivating for me. So
absolutely,
that's something
interesting.
I've been doing.
No, I think that's incredible how you could kind of pivot and go after something else that, of course, is important to you, but be able to help out another cause. It's incredible. So where do you see all of this going for you? I mean, you kind of just answered that. What I wanted to ask is, like, what's kind of next for you? But you're going to ride this, and you're going to go real hard with it, and then give as much information as you can to people, spread awareness as much as possible. And then you said just now, as things come up and you see something else that you're impassioned about, you would like to focus on that.
Yeah, so I think for me, from my standpoint, is I want to make this thing come to a stage. I want this thing to be living, breathing every day. There's a different production. I've got certain area or certain theaters that I'd like to see this get into. And so from my standpoint, I'm already talking to people that are actors, and they've already read the book. And in fact, the editor that read the book first said, this thing is actually written like it would be a play. I mean, it's got a lot of dialogue.
You had mentioned that. That's very cool.
You got 4 primary characters in it, plus Dementia's his own character, or Alzheimer's own character in this book. So from that standpoint, it is kind of ready-made for a play activity. So I want to get that to the point where this thing is moving forward in a play standpoint. There's active dialogue every day, every night. It's breathing through actors and their skill sets. But then in parallel to that, I'm still writing. I've got 3x5 cards right now that I'm writing down every day. Something inspires me. I see something. If you have the chance to read the book, you'll see exactly that these are concepts on a 3x5 card that I then flesh out and work over and over again to bring it to the story. So they'll talk about a pantser and a plotter. I'm the antithesis of a plotter. I'm a guy that has this cool lyric I heard, or this sight, this smell of something. I'm like, all right, write it down on a 3x5 card, set it away, and then I make this concept story that I'm working away and flesh it out, writing. I create as I'm writing. So, and I do it over and over and again until I get something that I'm happy with the product. But the next step is, in parallel to pushing that to the stage, I'm now already working on the next semblance of the book that I want to write.
That's incredible. So this begs the question: you are an author, but with yourself omitted, what would be your favorite book?
So I would say that I'm probably H.G. Wells. I actually enjoy H.G. Wells. I think so Island of Dr. Moreau I thought was pretty cool because it dealt with a topic that at that point in time for sure was looked at as being, well, wait a minute, you're talking about genetic, taking genes and mutating and these weird creations. Whether you're from a traditional religious background or not, that was like a taboo subject when he wrote the book. So I like the fact that he pushed the envelope in conversations that were probably a little bit difficult and kind of standoffish for a lot of people. That's exactly what I like. It creates the conversation around why is that a problem in writing a story like that? Well, he's talking about creating what an animal was and making something very, very different, and man becoming something very different throughout this process. Good. That's cool. I mean, that to me is a very creative work. So probably The Island of Dr. Moreau. 1984 was pretty cool as well. I thought that was a good book. I read, Atlas Shrugged. I've read twice, and 2,000 some odd pages.
That's a thick one.
So I've read that one. I thought that was a pretty cool work in its own way. So, but then a lot of people said you've had to read 1,000. No, I've not read 1,000 books. I've written poems. I've written cards. I've written notes. I've written goals. I've written things that I want to accomplish with it. And then when I needed a break, yes, I picked up one of the quote classic books and read it, just to say that I understood what their style was, what they did. But
yeah, absolutely, that's a good point. No, I'm always very curious, and I'm beginning to ask people because I'm on a insane reading mission, insane in my opinion, because I haven't been an avid reader really in my life, so I'm forcing myself into this read a book a week. So I'm very curious about asking people, and I think it's even more curious, and I'm just kidding. If it's even more curious with you because you are an author yourself, to hear what you or how you feel about these books and kind of like reading them in a sense of seeing what their tone is and being able to write your own books.
I have this weird statement I'll make that I'm sure is not going to be very popular, but I'll say it anyway. I am not going to read something that's ghostwritten by somebody else. So I refuse to read somebody's autobiography by so-and-so, or I refuse to read somebody that is, obviously had a ghost written for. I'm not going to do that. I refuse to. So for me, if it's a book that I choose to pick up, and it's that person invested the time, the sweat, the sweat equity in it, the effort, the pain that they had to write it, that's who I'm interested in reading. So I'm not going to read a ghost written book. I refuse to.
No, absolutely. I say all the time stuff that I maybe think people don't agree with, but it's just my opinion, and people can take it for what it's worth. And that's the kind of books you want to read, then read those kind of books. And man, David, I've had an incredible time with you. I absolutely love the direction you're headed, everything you're doing, your mindset. And I just can't believe we've whizzed through 30 minutes already. It was really quick. But what is the best way that somebody can contact you, and how is the best way for somebody to get a hold of one of your books?
So my book is available on Amazon. So Before the Ashes Fall, you can go onto Amazon.com. It is free for Kindle Prime members. They can download that. It's easy for people to get access to this book. Amazon, it's on iTunes as well. They can get that. And from a standpoint of contacting me, Serafine David at gmail.com. It's as easy as it gets. My last name, first name at gmail.com. So very simple. But and I love to hear from people's thoughts about the book. They liked it, they didn't like it, why they didn't like it, what it meant to them personally. I want to hear that, and I respond to everybody. I write everybody back. So
absolutely,
I want to hear from them.
No, I love that. I'm a huge advocate of saying if you disagree with it, great. I love people disagree. That's great. But give me your reasons why. Give me your constructive feedback, if you will, so that I can make things better or, go forward with that. But don't just complain about something and say, hey, that book sucked. Like, come on, guy. You got to help me out here.
Right. And I've had something where your book was terrible. Why? Because they didn't give it to me in the 3-day ship delivery. Like, wait, I didn't ship the book.
That doesn't mean the book's bad. Yeah, jeez. All right, David, like I said, I more than appreciate the time that you've given me today. We've had a great time. 30 minutes just zoomed by. So thank you very much.
Kristof, I appreciate the time, and the pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
All right, see you. Have a great day.
Take care. Thanks.